Welcome to our first episode of Bible Deep Dives for 2021. It's going to be a little bit different, whereas normally a Bible Deep Dive would take a passage that I had recently preached on and gone deeper into that individual passage. Today is going to be more so topical because we've started a new sermon series as well as a Sunday school series on the topic of prayer, and I've really been encouraged in the last few days with comments and things that I've been hearing about people really getting into prayer and with the goal of our church being more God dependent and through that through prayer in order to get there. And so the thing that I wanted to talk to you about today was sort of clarifying something that I had mentioned in my sermon. And so I want to make sure that you understand where I'm coming from. I haven't had any pushback from anything. I have had one conversation. It was just a phenomenal conversation to talk about the things of the Lord and prayer and His sovereignty and His goodness and prayer, and just how all that works together. And so why don't I just play you the clip of the thing that I had said on the sermon, and then I'll sort of explain it.
We can't change him. We can't give God new information that he is unaware of. And this begs the question then, that if this is so, then does prayer actually change things? And the answer is, surprisingly, yes and no. This might be a surprising answer, but it's one that we need to come to grips with. Scripture is clear. God does not change. There is no information that you can give to God by which he would say, I never thought of that before. You're right. Well, let's change the course of things. Instead, R.C. Sproul rightly points out, he says, in short, no prayer of any human being ever uttered in history ever changed the mind of God in the slightest, because his mind doesn't ever need to be changed. But prayer does change one important thing, he goes on to say. It changes us. Again, Sproul says, the most important thing it changes is us. And as we engage in this communion with God more deeply and come to know the one with whom we're speaking more intimately, that growing knowledge of God reveals to us all the more brilliantly who we are and our need to change in conformity to Him. Prayer changes us profoundly. God did not give prayer to the church for His benefit, but for ours.
Okay, so for many of you, this idea that prayer doesn't change God is maybe foreign to you and maybe new to you. And I want to first assert that I still hold to the idea that we can't change God's mind. There is a theological position called open theism that talks about God being able to change His mind, and I think biblically that is not an accurate biblical doctrine. I would borderline put it. I don't want to sound too negative here. Okay, so that was the clip from the sermon from this past weekend, and just to sort of clarify this, and I understand how some of you maybe have never really visited the idea of what does prayer look like in the mind of God, and whether or not it changes His mind or it changes things per se, and so let's work that out. First of all, we have to affirm that God is a God who does not change. Scripture is very, very clear about that. In fact, theologians use the word immutable, that God is immutable. And immutable means unchanging. It doesn't mean, when I first got into theology, I thought immutable means that you can't push the mute button on him and he won't be quiet. That's not what immutable means. Rather, it comes from the idea of mutations. So God is not subject to mutations or change. In fact, you look in scripture and it says that God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And I was just looking in Numbers chapter 23, verse 19, where it talks about that God is not a man that he should not lie, and he's not a son of man that he should change his mind. And so when we understand God to be this God who knows everything there is to know about everything. I mean, he knows every hair on your head. He knows every thought you've ever had. He knows every possibility that could have happened. So God is knowledgeable in that, and so we have to assent to the idea that there is nothing, no amount of information that we can give to God that is new to him. And like I said in the clip, God is not going to sit back and say, well, I mean, that's news to me. I never knew that. And so that really changes things. That's not the case. And I had also made the argument that that prayer doesn't change God, and I still would hold to that. God is still going to be God. His plan is still going to be carried out, and that prayer changes us. And I want to affirm those things, but I also want to add to those things because I think that there are plenty of instances in Scripture by which you see God acting on prayer. And so, in our perspective, it would seem, yes, that prayer does change things. And so then the question would immediately, I can even see it coming up in my own mind. Then if these things were going to happen, why pray? Well, I think that in the mind of God, he delights that we go to him, and he delights that we would pray to him and have that communion with him and be changed through prayer and through the reading of the word and through all those really good things. But the way that I see it also is that God, in his intention to make things happen in our lives and in our world, his intention is to do that through the prayers of his people. And so it may be, and this could be speculation because I do really think that there's a lot of mystery when it comes to prayer. There are some things that we can stand very confidently on, but there's also some things that are deep mysteries. I think that we can say that somehow God delights in his will being done through our prayers, and that his will is always to have those things happen. But had we not prayed, those things may not have happened. Okay, so I want to be clear, and maybe I'm just muddying the waters here a little bit, that yes, our prayers do change things. They change us. God uses our prayers to change the circumstances in the lives of others. We've seen in our church lives change through our prayers. And I mean, our prayers aren't the magical thing that's making things change, but God is honored to bless those prayers that we send up. We've seen people have some real medical breakthroughs because we have prayed for them, and I think that God delights to do that. Would he have done those things if we hadn't prayed? We can't really tell, but we do know that he delights in us praying, and he wants us to do that, and indeed he does. In our minds, change the course of things, and I would also say that our prayers are also part of his plan. And so, yeah, I mean, the one thing that I would want to leave you with today, and obviously there's going to be more questions that are going to come up because prayer is just one of those things that we're always going to have the conversation on. And I'm so thankful to have good, godly conversations like this. And I want concerns to be brought to me, and I want questions because I need help processing everything that comes to my mind as well. And so the one thing that I want to leave you with is just like a lot of things in studying God and in theology, is that I think we need to leave room for mystery. Okay. There are some things that we can't necessarily always explain. And we live in a world where we want to see the cause and effect. We want to be able to answer the question of why does this happen? Why does this happen? Have answers for those sorts of things. But when it comes to God, we don't always have the luxury of having all those answers. And I think that He designed it that way. And so I want to encourage you to leave prayer to the mystery of God, but also put prayer into your life more consistently, because Jesus commands us to do it. And so I want to leave you with that however God has ordained it in His plan, we are called to pray. We are called to be in relationship with Him, and it's a very, very good and God honoring thing as we go through this life with Him. So if you have any questions, certainly let me know. I have babbled on way too long here as I look at my time counter there. Let's keep this conversation going. I want to see you in Sunday school, whether it be on Google Meet or whether it be in person, and then hopefully in the service as well, as we keep jumping into this idea of connecting with our great and sovereign and merciful and holy and wonderful redeeming God together.